Members of the Jeyaretnam family, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be invited to speak about my idol, friend, and colleague, JB Jeyaretnam. With the passing of many notable persons from the pioneer generation, we often hear of the terms like someone who left an indelible mark in Singapore, immeasurable inspiration, and so on and so forth, bandied about. However, very few of them are worthy of the accolades thrown at them. But in JBJ's case, these terms will be true, and I hope to prove them in my speech today. In other words, I must prove my case. I don't need a practicing certificate to do that. And I'm sure as a lawyer, JBJ himself would insist on it. It's almost a given that JBJ was an inspiration to an entire generation of Singaporeans. Take myself as an example. As a young boy, growing up in the 80s, watching debates in Parliament, watching JBJ taking on the ministers in Parliament, and reading about his numerous cases, these were some of the things that inspired me to become a lawyer. And there were few other lawyers that I've spoken to who will attest to the fact that JBJ's cut and thrust debating style also inspired them to become lawyers. And obviously, his performance in Parliament, his stewardship of the Workers' Party, and his action as a politician inspired many to take up the cudgels to become opposition politicians. Go and ask Mr. Lau Tia Kiang, our dearest Teo Solang, Vincent Vijayasinghe, or Mr. Goming Singh, who or what made them take the first step. The common answer will be JBJ. He got a whole lot of Singaporeans to sit up and think about Singapore's political future and how they can contribute. Undoubtedly, my dear friends, amongst his immense contribution must be in the arena of politics. The fact that we have a vibrant opposition today. Some people allege that the reason JBJ went into politics was because he was overlooked for the position as a High Court judge. JBJ was a first magistrate then. First magistrate meaning he was the head of the subordinate court judiciary, and one can expect that he would be elevated to the High Court bench. But those who knew JBJ well knew that he was never motivated by spite nor pride. Rather, his values, beliefs, and principle. In fact, he was initially an admirer of LKY, who started out as a labor rights lawyer and fighting for workers' rights and so on. But what motivated JBJ to join the Workers' Party in opposition politics was his observation that the government of the day was moving further and further away from supporting workers' rights and their claims, and that there was a fundamental erosion of basic rights in society. So therefore, the opposition needed a high-profile figure, and JBJ's entry into the Workers' Party and subsequently him rising to its leadership became a turning point. He began to contest elections, restructuring the party and bringing in new faces. It took some time, but with each election and by-election, the opposition's profile was raised. Perhaps, my dear friends, in the present day with social media and internet, we may not be able to appreciate what he did. In the 1970s, the PAP, election after election, was having clean sweeps. The press and media was under complete control of the state. Very few of them dared to question, you know who I mean. Then came the Ensign by-election in 1981, and JBJ created history by becoming the first opposition MP after independence. The shot in the arm to to the whole opposition was immediate and lasting. The glass ceiling had finally been cracked. From that day onwards, a new chapter had been written in Singapore's history. Finally, people have an avenue to speak, albeit a small one, to raise questions through him in Parliament. And every opposition MP today and in future can trace their route back to that stunning victory in Ensign. The Workers' Party grew from strength to strength, and other parties popped up, and JBJ left an indelible mark in Singapore's history. As I mentioned earlier, I was quite overawed by watching JBJ on TV and reading about him. So I paid a visit to his office to purchase a copy of the party's newsletter. My esteem of him grew even more when he even took the time to speak to me. I believe he must have been quite surprised. Why is this young teenager was so interested in law and politics? And I also could sense a certain sense of concern on his face, as if there was a premonition in his heart that this boy is going to get into a lot of trouble when he becomes a lawyer. See more trouble. So over the years, I took up law and finally had a chance to work with him and to observe him at close quarters. It didn't take me very long to confirm what I had already knew, that he is a man of values, beliefs, and principles. As a lawyer, he firmly believed that justice must be for all, that every person had an equal right to plead their case before the court, and the right to fair trial and the right to counsel. He would readily take up cases, unpopular cases, that other lawyers would not dare to take up. I witnessed clearly in a case which both of us defended. We happened to defend Dr. Chi and Chi Seok Chin in a contempt of court proceedings arising out of a defamation suit by the PAP leaders. I learned the value of being committed and determined to present the best defense for my client from him, and also not to be intimidated by the court. Now, as I speak about JBJ in a very solemn note, I would also like to share something about him, a privilege which I had in observing him at close quarters. Many of you might think that JBJ is actually a very stern man. In fact, he has a great sense of humor, and I think that really preserved his sanity, which some of us lose once a while. You know, there was one occasion I followed him to the subordinate court, and we entered the lift. There were a group of members of the public as well as a group of lawyers in the lift. So there was this elderly auntie among the crowd who was looking very intensely at JBJ, and suddenly she asked him, "Are you the hammer?" And JBJ looked very amused, and we didn't know how to react. And I was not sure what to say. You know, you're walking with someone who's so confident, with that centurion voice, with that persona. And that auntie didn't seem to give up. She continued to pursue the question, her next question, and asked, "How old are you, huh?" And JBJ looked at her and said, "I'm 150 years old this year." And he walked out. It was hilarious. JBJ was a man of true principle, grit, and determination. He truly believed in the fundamentals of democracy, that it was the duty of the opposition to question, to check, and put the government to account. Of course, the powers that be didn't like that and went out of their way to destroy him and mock him for raising such as human rights issues and freedom when they have brought so-called immeasurable economic success to Singapore. He was condemned for his opposing views and for his persistence on basic rights and freedom, as tired old arguments being repeatedly rejected by the electorate. But JBJ stood firm, never wavering from his beliefs and principles that social justice must go hand in hand with economic justice, that freedom of press, freedom of expression is not an exclusive territory from pursuing freedom to a decent housing and insurance and all the other economic goods. And his catchphrase was, "Make it right, Singapore." To the very end, he continued and urged his Singaporeans not to forget to demand these basic rights. Finally, I come to the description that fits JBJ to a T, a true son of Singapore. JBJ may not have done a single day of NS, but he has sacrificed so much for this country. Some may suggest, oh, he got a lot of fame and he got a lot of supporters. Yes, but at what cost? Hand on heart, how many of us will be able to sacrifice so much and give up so much of our time and resources to do what he did? JBJ could have simply gone through 1, 2, 3 elections and thrown in the towel and say, all right, I've done enough, I've been unsuccessful, I should now concentrate on my family and retire peacefully and let me pass the torch to the younger generation. But that was not JBJ. He was already a successful lawyer and a very senior one too. Like many of his peers, he could have established a successful practice and become a millionaire. Yet, he was prepared to forego all that in order to fight and defend his fellow Singaporeans. He saw it as a duty up to the very last age and up to his death. He never gave up to fight. Is this not a true son of Singapore, friends? And even he had to go to jail and face the prospect of being denied his lifelong passion of being a lawyer. I know what that means. The Privy Council found the charges faulty and found him innocent, but could not reinstate him or rather overturn his conviction and loss of position as an MP. But to his credit, JBJ never made a meal of his sacrifices and losses. He was bankrupted, he was condemned, and he was forced to give up all his possessions and savings. Yet not once did he throw in the towel and beg for mercy. He saw it as a huge honor. Indeed, he is a true son of Singapore. To end, my dear friends, let me take you back to 1984 and the general elections. After retaining his seat in Anson, he was asked by a few reporters to give a few remarks on his win in his Anson. He said, "My dear voters of Anson, you have withstood the onslaught of the mighty PAP, and I salute you." Looking back at his life and the contributions of this great man, a man who sacrificed his entire adult life up to his dying breath for all of us, I think, and I can safely say, for all of us here today, wherever he is. My dear JB Jeyaretnam, you have withstood the onslaught of the mighty PAP. You were dogged, determined, and unwavering. and we will always salute you. Thank you.